Ballad of Johnny Arcane by Jim Nail, read to you by Jim Nail. Chapter 14, Mars, Part 2. Behind the roadhouse, a staved wagon sagged in the shadows. Hitched to it was what at first Johnny thought was a donkey, but drawing closer he saw that it was a horse, although a very small one, with tufts of hair on its hooves and a shaggy mane. The dark-skinned man jumped on the buckboard and threw open the tent flap. Johnny had no choice but to enter. Mars Daniel. Mars Daniel introduced himself as he lit the matted contents of a corncob pipe with a fiery stick. Well, that much is obvious, thought Johnny. It was what they called him at the roadhouse, and on the curved canvas cover of the wagon, among the brightly painted pictures of one-eyed pyramids, roses, flying dragons, and naked women with fishtails for feet, sprawled in big, curling letters, Mars Daniel, pots, pans, and knives. You want some of this? Mars held out the pipe. Johnny looked around. Indeed, inside the wagon there were pots and pans hanging everywhere, and rows of shiny knives racked in cases along the walls. A lantern hitched to an overhead stave glowed a dark crimson. The oil did not smell like corn. No, I don't smoke. Well, this isn't what the boys were smoking in the den. This'll do something to you. Johnny shook his head. I smoked something back in the town of Stubblefield once. They called it the Illumination. Never heard of Stubblefield. The Illumination. I like it. You haven't told me your name yet. Mars took a deep drag from the pipe. Johnny. Just Johnny? Johnny Arcane. Mars went suddenly pale as a dark-skinned man could go. His whole body froze like a shard of obsidian. His eyes grew big and round. Oh, sweet mother of Bezel, he said, and braced his elbows on his knees, cupped both his hands, and folded his face into them. He shuddered and moaned. He spoke to himself. Mars Daniel, you and your bleeding purple heart, what in the name of great Zimmerman's ghost have you drugged yourself into now? He lifted his hands and rubbed his eyes with his fists. He looked at Johnny. He glanced at the tent flap as if he intended to escape. He looked back, and a kind of determination set in. He clenched his jaws. Okay, this is what's going to have to happen. His voice was clipped and rapid. That's not going to be your name anymore, you sus. From now on, your name's going to be Jimmy Clearlight. Got that? Name's Jimmy Clearlight. But I'm Johnny Arcane. My father was Casper Arcane. I don't care who your father was. Your father was Casper Clearlight. Got that? You can't be Johnny Arcane if you're going to go with me. How do you know I'm going to go with you? You have to go with me, Jimmy Clearlight. You won't survive otherwise. They would have killed you in there if I hadn't come along. I'm your protector, Jimmy Clearlight. You don't even know where I'm going. Mars seemed to be caught off guard by this. He leaned back on his three-legged stool and frowned. Well, where are you going? I have to be on the Onyx Highway heading for the flesh mills of Ironweed on the morning of the 4th moon. The Blackcoats are moving some captives. I have to stop this. One of them is Lucy. Mars stared off into space for a long time, his jaw ajar. "You want me to die, don't you?" he said at last. "I don't want you to do anything. This is your idea." "Lucy, she your wife?" "No, we were too young." Mars struck another fire stick and relit the pipe. "You sure you don't want some of this? Might change your thinking." Johnny didn't answer. Mars took a deep drag and savored it for longer than a person should be able to hold his breath. When he exhaled, smoke seemed to issue from his nose, his eyes, even his ears. "Well, first, Clearlight, you're not going to be able to measure time by the moon in Ironweed. She makes herself a stranger there. Do you know the day count between now and the morning of the fourth moon?" "I do. I put pebbles in a corn jar. I have 17 days. "Good. I can make it Ironweed in 15, but they won't let you cross the border. You'll have to hide in the wagon. I have a merchant's pass." Johnny meshed his hands together and the fingers began intertwining involuntarily like snakes. In his body, he could feel the energy moving in two opposite directions. In the pit of his stomach, he felt a great sinking dread. In his arms, he felt the rising tingle of hope. "You can't do this by yourself, Jimmy Clearlight. I'm your only chance." "What's a mandolin, anyway?" "It's a musical instrument." "Get it out, then. Play it for me. I need music right now." Mars threw himself backwards from the stool onto a jumble of bedding on a shelf at the back of the wagon. Johnny opened his backpack and took the mandolin from the case. So long ago, it seemed, that last morning he played music with Bearclaw, Ant, and Jocko. Happy to meet, sorry to part. And their eyes were all in tears. Perhaps it was necessary to take on a new name in this strange new place, but it was hard to let go of the past. He plucked the strings. They were untuned. Then that's how he would play, untuned. He struck a few chords and ran a bit of untuned melody. "Break my heart, Jimmy Clearlight," said Mars with a sigh. "Break my heart." So he played. It was strange to play alone, but it was satisfying too. It seemed to knit together all the fragments of the recent moons and put his mind to the focus of his purpose. His memory connected with certain melodies and he had made before while chasing after the notes that flowed from Ant's nimble fingers or trying to fit into the dissonant chords of Bearclaw's guitar. He didn't know how long he played. Time seemed contained by the canvas cover of the wagon. It took a while for him to realize that Mars Daniel was sitting up in the bed, staring at him. He stopped playing. "You got a bullet wound. We need to tie that up." Mars didn't have any bandages. He washed the wound with a clear fluid from a jar. It wasn't water. It stung like fire and it made the blood go dry and the flesh recoil. He tied up the wound with a black sash and he sewed up the hole in Johnny's shirt with a wooden needle and a fragment of yarn. "Jimmy Clearlight," he said, "where do you come from?" At first, Johnny didn't know how to answer. Eventually, he figured the simplest truth was the best. "I was born in the village of Aberdeen. I never met my father, Casper Arcane. He was a sojourner, just passing through. You come from the other side, then. What side is this? This is neither. This is the fringes. This is where Jupiter comes to make love to Venus. But I just come here to get my wares and sell them across the border where I live. What do you know about the other side, then, the side where I come from? Mars shook his head. Nobody knows about the other side except the blackcoats. They guard the borders. We avoid them as much as we can. Our task is just to stay alive. Where do the blackcoats come from? The blackcoats come from the city, where the thinkers live. Though the ones who rule this world of chaos and cruelty. Some say the blackcoats are not people, they're machines. I don't care, though. I just want to survive and thrive and take pleasure in this crazy world. Tell me more about this place you come from. What do you mean? You never heard of money? Never. I still don't know what it is. Well, that's crazy. Don't people work where you come from? Of course, everybody works. You have a job, you have a uniform. There's farmers and millers and metal pounders and thatchers and dressmakers. There's messengers. There's mummers. I guess that's a kind of work. But it's mostly just doing dances and keeping the stories alive. But don't you get paid to do your job? There was that word again, paid. He couldn't wrap his mind around it. He shook his head. We have dispensaries. People bring the food they grow and the things they make, and you can just go there and take things if you need them. There's an old saying, if it isn't there, you don't need it. What about houses? Do people build them? Sometimes. Usually they build them out of logs, but most of the buildings have always been there. No one knows how long or who built them. There's a word for these things, but most people don't know the word. They're called dolmens. Do people ever fight? Yes, they fight. Usually arm wrestling, and sometimes they have stick fights. Mostly that happens when two men want to marry the same woman. Well, who marries the woman? The woman makes that decision based on who fought the best. Mars sat for a while with his elbows on his knees, his chin in his hands, staring down at the floor. Outside there were noises, drunken, angry voices, the sound of glass breaking. Then it grew quiet. The dark-skinned man threw himself back on the bed. Just play me some more music, Jimmy Clearlight. Tomorrow's gonna be a big day for you.